Hey, this is Andre Bernier Music on Instagram and Andre Bernier Music on YouTube. Today I want to talk a little bit about ADSR envelopes, why they're very confusing and misrepresented. So let's get into it. So if you're unfamiliar with the concept of what an envelope is in subtractive synthesis, essentially the reason subtractive synthesis is called subtractive is because we're starting with a block of sound, and that block is the pure waveform. So a pure square, a pure saw, a pure triangle. Those are really the three main waves that are used in synthesis writ large. And then we're going to close down how much of that we see with the filter, right? To make it more mellow and more palatable. But in terms of controlling how the timbre shows itself over time, whether it be through volume or opening of that filter, we have envelopes. You have to think originally synthesizers were made to be like the Nord keyboards of the time. They were trying to make something that could replicate anything. And so when you're using a slow attack, for instance, on a filter envelope on a saw wave, a lot of people think that sounds like how a trumpet sounds. And so if you listen to like Toto, they will use synth brass and its slow attack filter on a mini Moog. These were made to emulate real life instruments. And so plucking sounds, bowing sounds like fading in. That's a very common sound that I'll use in terms of like string kind of replication. There's a lot of ways to do these different things, but they're all made to emulate organic sound sources. And so there's generally two envelopes on synthesizers, although some synths, like the Juno, combine those two envelopes into one, and both of them have the exact same parameters, ADSR. So ADSR actually stands for attack, decay, sustain, and release. And one of those is not like the others. It's not like the others at all. So this is what drives me crazy. Are you ready? Sustain is a volume level. It is a volume level, not a unit of time. Attack, decay, release, all units of time. Sustain, unrelated to time. Sustain is how loud the note will sustain when you have gated the key, and gated means press down the key for all intents and purposes. Everything else is responding to how fast the filter attacks up and decays back, or how long it fades out after you have left the key. But sustain is just how loud it is when it stays up. And because of this, I keep my sustain at 100% on the amplifier envelope and at 0% on filter envelope 99% of the time. There's this graphic I found in, I believe, the original Prophet 5 manual, although don't quote me on that. And it's for the filter envelope, but it applies to the amplifier envelope as well. I just love how they show it. Look how sustain is to the left. Sustain is completely isolated from the rest of these values, and that's the way that it should be, because so often it's shown as a third stage of this 4-stage envelope, and it's not. The third stage is release. Attack, decay, release. Those are the stages. Sustain is a volume level. Sustain is a volume level. And it shows it really well. You see how it's off to the side. It's independent value-wise to what the other ones are in terms of time. So if I can leave you with nothing else, please just be left with that. Sustain is a volume level. If you're unsure of where your filter envelope should be versus your amplifier envelope in terms of attack and release, just keep them at the exact same value. And we've already established that sustain should be at 100% on your amplifier envelope, because as long as you're pressing that note down, you want it to stay at full volume. And sustain should be at 0% on the filter, because as soon as it gets done completing the attack and decay cycle, you want it to return to a baseline of wherever your cutoff filter is set. I hope this makes sense. So that's my recommendation. Keep your attack and release at the same level as each other on filter and amplifier envelope. And you'll know if you say, you know what, I actually do want this to sound, let's say, more plucky. Okay, great, sounds good. You could have a longer attack on the amplifier envelope, but then maybe a shorter attack with a short decay on your filter envelope. Sounds good. Something else I'll do on my Prophet, and this is kind of an easy way to get started if you have a Rev 2 or you have a Prophet 5 or 6, or pretty much any other polysynth that has envelope generators for filter as well as amplifier. I call it sevens. And sevens works like this. You put attack on 7, and on your filter envelope, you put attack on 7. And you put your decay on the filter envelope, attack on 7. Now remember, sustain is at 0 on your filter envelope. But release, you guessed it, is on 7. See how every unit of time is on 7? This just makes it very easy. It's a starting point. On the amplifier envelope, I will do attack on 7. I will do decay. It's kind of useless because remember, like I said before, sustain's at 100%. That's what's coming up. So decay can be on 7, but it can also be on 10. It doesn't really matter. It can be on 1. It's not decaying to anything, so it's irrelevant. I put it on 7 just to have it in the mix looking the same. Sustain, I will put to 100 because I want it to stay up the entire time I have my keys pressed down. The release, you guessed it, 7. And this is a nice starting point. This is always a nice starting point. If I'm new to a synth, let's say I'm getting on an Oberheim or something that I don't play every day, this is generally where I'll go to because it gives me a good idea of how long the envelopes are. A lot of times these envelopes seem to be sort of have a tilt to them, right? They might be even shorter at the front end or even longer at the back end. And so it kind of gives me a good idea. 7 is long enough to tell me, all right, how long is this synth? For instance, I find Oberheims have shorter envelopes time-wise than Prophets, which I think also kind of plays into why they sound the way that they sound and why they've been used the way that they've been used traditionally. So all this is to say, I hope this has been useful in any capacity. Not an education channel, not an educator, but this is just something that's frustrated me for a long time, and I really just wanted to share that graphic with you. If you search ADSR envelope, I hope you were trying to find something like this that just explains this in a very basic way, because I kind of got tired of all the videos where they present it like it's 4 things in a row. There's 3 stages of time, 1 volume knob. 3 stages of time, 1 volume knob. Till the next video. Thank you so much, guys. Like and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and I appreciate you all. Thank you for watching.